All right. Good morning, Ben. How are you doing today?
I'm great. Happy Monday.
Happy Monday. It's 9 a.m. Eastern time, and I guess it's probably like 3 p.m. something over in the United Kingdom. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, just after 2 p.m. So we're just getting going into the afternoon.
Beautiful. Well, thanks so much for coming on the Marketing Mavericks Vlogcast. Ben, we've known each other for I guess about a year now, and if I'm
Mm.
remembering correctly, I think I posted a video of one of my clients in the recruiting technology space,
Yep.
and then I think you just messaged me saying, "Hey, we're in that space. Let's be friends." Does that sound about right?
Yeah, I think it sounds that sounds pretty accurate. For me, having the right partner for video is really important. And like any technology vendor, we do a lot with different types of video, whether that's explainer, case study, etc. So I've always got an eye out for potential future partners.
Awesome. And yeah, we're super happy that you sent me that message. We stayed in touch. I'm pretty sure. I think that was Q4 last year, and you know how
Yep.
Q4 is, right? It's not like you're always buying necessarily, but you got your eye out. Right? You're ultimately trying to figure out who am I going to partner with next year? What am I going to do next year? And again, I think just a lot of conversations back and forth got us to the point we're able to work together on some pretty cool projects last year.
Yeah, we had a lot of fun. And I mean, maybe I'll just share for folks one of the big things we worked on because I think it's exciting. In a world where there are so many different types of virtual events, we saw an opportunity to use video to make ours stand out from the crowd, right? We ran a big virtual conference last year that was highly successful, and the video that we put together around, our product vision and really bringing our founders and the mission of the business to life in an innovative, interactive way was, I think, a critical part of making that event a success. So yeah, was a pleasure to work together.
Thank you, Ben. It was a pleasure to work with you. And we'll circle back to video in just a moment, but let's have you introduce yourself to the audience. Who are you? What is Beamery? How'd you land here? Let's hear your story.
Big questions. So my name is obviously Ben. I global marketing leader here at Beamery. Beamery is a talent lifecycle management platform. So what we mean by that is it's a single platform to help some of the world's largest employers attract, engage, hire, retain, upskill their talent, right? I think every business is in a really challenging situation currently. The skills they have today may not be the skills they need in the future, and having a single platform to help them either go out and hire the skills they need from the market or to build those skills internally through development and upskilling programs is incredibly impactful. And I think something that's going to be a huge part of how organizations think about the future of their workforce. We operate globally across gosh, probably 100 different countries. So it's been a fascinating journey. I joined as employee 4 or 5, so a long time ago, and built out the marketing organization from the ground up.
That's awesome. So you've gone from employee 4 or 5 to now you guys just raised your Series D, got over $1 billion valuation. I'm sure you've learned a few lessons along the way, right? What's what have you learned? And obviously you have a million things, but how do you feel like you've been able to learn things and ultimately help grow this rocket ship?
I think there are a couple of traits that become very important to successfully transitioning from a very early stage business. I joined Beamery pre-product, pre-revenue, pre any external funding, all the way through to an at scale organization that is obviously very successful. The people that survive and thrive in those instances are the ones who have a strong growth mindset, right? They're always looking for what they don't know, always
Hmm.
looking to learn from mentors, to try and understand what the business needs them to be, not just now, but also 6 months into the future. And I think paired with that, you need a healthy dose of, you can call it persistence or resilience, right? One of the two, maybe a little splash of them together. And that's because it's really hard. I equate startups to hand-to-hand combat, right? And look, sales and marketing is full of different military metaphors and analogies, but this is very much, you're in the trenches every day. You're trying to figure out why something isn't working. You're rolling up your sleeves to make changes, to, bring things to life. And it's a real slog, right? And I think the people that are successful are ultimately the ones that stay in the game, that take another shot and that keep going.
I love it. And hey, I mean that's what it takes to go to the next level, no matter what, right? Whether you're going from pre-seed to seed, seed to A to B, C, D, or whether you're just like consume, just a bootstrap company trying to continue to grow and grow. It really does take that persistence. And if you don't have it, if you don't have that growth mindset, you're not going to grow, right? It sounds like a cliche, right? But without the growth mindset, how do you grow, right?
Yeah, look, I completely agree, and I've been very lucky to have had some amazing mentors along the way, right? People that have been
Mhm.
very generous with their time. Um, I think for folks earlier in their career, all the advice we've just shared holds true. I think the other thing I would share is find a company that has a big, exciting mission, right? Something that gets you out of bed in the morning. At Beamery, we want to unlock the potential of every human on the planet, right? That's exciting. That's worth fighting for. That's worth the long nights or the occasional moments of frustration. It's something that will materially make a difference to an enormous amount of humanity if we get it right, and that's something worth fighting for.
Absolutely, I love that. I mean, the mission's so important. Ultimately, you have to connect. You have to want to get out of bed in the morning. You have to want to turn on that computer and ultimately be like, okay, this is what I'm doing for today. This is what I'm doing for the week. This is how I'm gonna, you know, make a living. But this is how I'm gonna help this planet, to help the economy grow, essentially, right?
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
I want to circle back because we had a really interesting project last year, Ben. Um, And it was funny because I think, while Consume Media did not go to England, we did essentially supervise the production in England, which was really cool. But ultimately, what did we do, right? You guys had this big virtual conference launching some big company announcements, and ultimately, we worked with a local team in the United Kingdom to film, and ultimately, Consume Media helped produce direct graphics, animation, and bring together this whole 30-minute keynote, right? And there's these virtual events all the time, right? So you have to do something to separate yourselves, right? And what was your mission? How did you guys feel like, hey, we're going to do this virtual event, but we're going to separate ourselves, make something really engaging that people are going to love?
I think the word virtual event and engaging aren't often in the same sentence these days, right? And virtual events are different kinds of being part of the marketing playbook, right? For as long as it was possible to be virtual. For us, and for me, if I look at the marketing landscape, it's really a kind of sea of sameness. And the problem we're all facing is that innovations like AI and content generative tools like ChatGPT make things easier for marketing to get to a certain bar, right? But really, all that's going to do is make this sea of sameness, even more overbearing. And I think if you want to stand out, you have to take a step back and think about, okay, how can you innovate? What is your story to tell? Like, what do you have the right to tell? What is the point of view that you have on the market? What is something that you can say or a way of saying it that will allow you to stand out? So for us, we've run virtual events for a long time. This was, I think, our fifth year running Spark Live, which is our big annual virtual conference. And we've grown that audience from 1,000 people to well over 10,000. And the easiest thing in the world to do for us would have been to say, okay, this year it's 15,000, right? Like we want to grow the community, and breadth is the leading indicator we're using to success. And we actually decided to go in a different direction. We wanted to go deep. We wanted to create really amazing content for leaders in the industry. And you might say, well, hey, are executives really going to show up for a virtual event? And actually, we saw that a significant amount did, which was fantastic. And we want to create a virtual experience that feels like you're in a room with people, right? That feels like you can interact, that feels like you can build connections and network. And, we want to create like a richness of content that makes that experience amazing. And obviously, working with the good folks at Consume was a big part of pulling together the content for the keynote. But really, that's just one part of the event. The event itself it needs to feel like an experience, not something that a vendor is putting on that maybe you're logging in for a bit. And you'll know you're successful if you see people not just joining for a session, but sticking around throughout the day. You'll know you're successful if you see people interacting, and you'll know you're successful if you see, comments like, "Hey, I really needed this today," right? That for me is a barometer of success. And like obviously in marketing, we have all of the different types of metrics that we look about in terms of pipeline generated and new leads and the influence that we're driving on revenue. And of course, we track those things, and of course, those things are important. But when you're putting on an event of any kind, it's creating an experience that people are going to remember. That is one of the most important things.
I love it. And that kind of leads me to kind of ask a question with two sides of it. First of all, you know, I think, from there's the experience standpoint. How does the viewer ultimately engage with and go from session to session, and what does that feel like? But also, what is the messaging? What's the story? And I think that's one thing that collectively we did a really good job on the keynotes, the storytelling front. It can be so easy to go out there and say we do X, Y, and Z, and X is important because of this and Y is important because of this. But ultimately, when we were putting together this script, and really Beamery took the charge here, there were so many real life examples, right? It's
Mm.
like, let's look at person A. Let's look at how this person does this and this and how it's affected. Or look at company A and look at how they interact with employee A, and just kind of seeing it from a persona based perspective. How do you feel like that's important, right? Not just talking about the product, but talking about the people. And ultimately, again, turning into a story rather than a here's our product.
Well, look, Leo, the reality is no one cares about the product, right? And look, that's obviously not 100% true, but I think as marketers, you know, we get ourselves so wrapped up with how feature A is better than feature B. And, the majority of people, particularly those who aren't your customers, that's not what they're looking for, particularly in an event, right? And something they're going to spend a significant amount of time in. What they want is either insights that are going to help them make a difference in their role, right? How can they be better? They want to be inspired by people, and they also want to understand what something means to them, right? And the persona-based approach that you mentioned is really important.
Mm-hmm.
We all have a unique perspective on the workforce, either as a manager hiring people, as an employee at a business, or as a candidate applying for jobs, right? So for us, it was paramount to tell our story through the lens of those different personas, right? Of those different stages of the talent life cycle. And that becomes, immediately it resonates with people because they get it, they've been there, right? And what if it was different, right? What if,
Mm-hmm.
for example, as a candidate, through AI, you saw not just the list of jobs that are on a careers page, but jobs you might never have thought of that are
Mm-hmm.
being picked out by AI and matched to the skills that you have or the potential you have to grow. That's a pretty transformative experience, right? For anyone applying for a job, but that could be so easily buried in features and functions. And look, that's not the big story. Whenever I talk to folks, on the team or other businesses about campaigns or events or content, the big thing for me is what is like, why should people care? What's the big story? What's the big narrative? What's the hook, right? Because ultimately we should be storytellers, and that's the thing that comes first and foremost in any program.
Well, and it even comes back to something you said earlier, and I'm not going to butcher it, so I'm not going to try, but the mission statement, right?
Yeah.
The mission statement wasn't, to create the best product. It was, what was it?
Unlock the potential of every human on the planet.
I love that. Unlock the potential of every human on the planet. And again, that's not about a product, that's about a mission, that's about the people, right? That every human is in the center of that mission statement. And I think that kind of just connects everything we just talked about, right? It's about the human experience rather than the product that we're pitching, right?
It certainly is, and I remember one thing a mentor told me earlier in my career. Um, he said, think about a group of people marching down the street with banners, right, chanting something about your company. What are they chanting, right? What is that? What is that societal change, right, that they would care about, and how can you tie your story to that? And I think it's a great reminder that as marketers, we need to rise above um, just pure product differentiation and, you know, really speak to business and societal value
Mhm.
with the platforms and software that we're looking to drive value around.
That's awesome. Awesome. So I want to slightly pivot a little bit,
Yeah.
because when we were talking beforehand and kind of coming up with our conversation, one of the things we asked you was like, hey, what are the new innovations you guys are doing in the marketing department? And what you said is what's old is new again, right? We're talking about events, but we're also talking about account-based marketing online and offline. And I want to hear a little bit from your perspective. Obviously, from my perspective, events are huge, right? That's where I'm in the service industry, right? So ultimately, it's all about relationships. It's all about meeting people. ABM, obviously, both of us are selling fairly high ticket items, and ultimately, you need to get your name in front of the right person. So tell me, both of those things. How are you guys using events? How are you guys using ABM and any other marketing items that you think are interesting you guys are working on?
I think for me, it comes down to what are the marketing channels that give you strategic leverage. And, you know, you can think about marketing strategies like a pyramid, right? You always need a level of kind of broad brush air cover and awareness that sits over the top of what you're doing, that educates the market as to, what the category problem is, why you exist, and, uses a variety of different channels to make sure your message is in the right place at the right time.
Mhm.
But as we really narrow in on, the accounts and the context we care about, what becomes increasingly important is creating experiences that allow you to impute your brand identity or your company story or,
Mhm.
your product value on those different people. And for me, using events is obviously a great way of doing that. There's nothing that works quite as well as, doing that stuff in person and creating genuine human connection. If and when that's not possible, building an experience that is personalized and that is really a digital wrapper, right, around people as they explore, your brand is the way that we think about it at Beamery, and that might mean personalized content and landing pages. That might mean personalized advertising. That might mean, edited content that speaks to the unique pain points of your company and your industry. Things are little tweaks on the Beamery side that make the experience feel
Mhm.
more one-to-one for the potential customer. And look, it's almost like a tired adage now, right? But we're all consumers. We're all used to deep personalization in the apps that we spend a lot of time in, whether that's, Netflix or Amazon or,
Mhm.
a myriad of others. So how do we as marketers try and replicate that experience? And how do we think about the people we care about as, a real audience, not just a lead list, right? An audience of people with feelings, fears, hopes, dreams, etc.
It's so true. And it's like, I think about, probably both of us, right? We probably get so many cold emails or cold phone calls, right? Every single day. And if it's standard, what do? You just delete it immediately. I'm thinking about one time that I got a lead or a cold email a few weeks ago, or maybe a few months ago. And it's funny because right before we started this recording, we were talking about, hey, I'm a big football fan, Georgia Bulldog football fan, and somehow the seller figured out I was a big Georgia Bulldog football fan and put that in his intro line to my email. I'm like, I'll talk to this guy. This guy spent enough time just trying to figure out who I am, what I like, and he was right. Took the email. Actually, I even bought the product. That was the key, right? Is that personalization.
There you go. There you have it.
Cool. So, Ben, we are just about at time here, but before we wrap this up, I just want to ask you, any last words of wisdom or piece of advice you would give to someone trying to really have this, SVP of marketing career?
Yeah, I think one area we haven't touched on is, how you can support yourself along the journey, right? And we've talked about the learning side of that, but the reality is that as an executive, no one is looking after your well-being apart from you, right? So taking the time to prioritize that, whatever that means to you, whether that's, exercise, sleep, nutrition, breath work, right? There's obviously lots of different of ways in investing in yourself, but taking that time, carving it out for yourself, making it sacrosanct, scheduling in your calendar, right? That's for me, that's super important because there's yeah, as I said, there's no one else that's going to do it.
I love it. Awesome. Ben, where can people find you? How can people learn more about Beamery?
So if you're looking to learn more about Beamery, easiest way is just heading over to our website. So that's just www.beamery.com. And then if you want to connect with me, you want to learn more, you want to start a dialogue, Ben Slater, LinkedIn, hopefully it should be pretty easy to find.
I love it. Ben, this was a pleasure. Like I said, bright and early on a Monday morning for me. You got a few hours of work under your belt already today, but this has been fantastic. A really, really great conversation and excited to share this with the world.